joined by Senitra you're from Dallas?
Yes, that's right.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you for joining us. I'm excited to talk more about the kind of travel you do and also checking accounts, I guess, because that's something I am about as clueless about as a lot of things in life. So I'm excited to hear about that. Can you tell us a bit, I guess, about yourself or your travel background or what?
Yeah. I first started traveling 9 years ago, I guess, when I got my first passport. And my dad wanted us to take a trip out of the country. We wound up just going to Mexico, but it was something that I really enjoyed. And I was like, well, now I have this passport and I want to figure out how can I use it, but I don't have a lot of money and I can't afford taking, expensive trips around the world. So shortly after that, a few months later, I discovered kind of the points and miles, and I started reading all the blogs like yours and other ones, and from there it just became like I was obsessed with it and had to figure out I was signing up for new credit cards every few months and just getting as many points and miles as I could so I could travel, and I've been doing that since 2012.
That is quite a while. Okay, that's a long time.
Ben is like, what? And so, I mean, it is, there are a lot of people like, oh, I've been into miles and points for like 6 months. I really love it. It's so amazing.
Well, usually, yeah, that story starts with, and then it's like, in 2019, I learned about this. And then I'm like, okay, 2012, that's legit. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm a turner, so I probably, most of the major credit cards, I've had them like multiple times. I cancel them and do it again. So yeah, I'm all that.
Okay, and what kind of travel do you like? Do you do a lot of international, domestic? How often do you travel? How many miles?
I actually love this because so many people, like one of the things I love about Senitra is that you're very, like you're just doing all of this on the sly. Like you don't really broadcast stuff. And so many people are like, I could never travel like this. It's just these big name bloggers that do this. And you're just over here like low key. You've been to what, 100 and something countries now?
No, not yet. Not close to that. I've only been to like 30.
I feel like, okay, still. But you're doing this like with a day job and a dog.
Yes, I do. I have like a regular 40-hour-a-week job. It's usually in an office, but right now, because of the pandemic, I'm working from home. But and I have my 11-year-old dog that I'm single, so I always have to find something to do with her when I go on a trip or, somebody to pet sit for me. But yeah, I forgot what you were actually asking, Ben.
Well, actually, on the dog front, so what is because we also have a dog, and that is like the hardest part of traveling, and what makes me hate traveling is the way my dog looks at me when I get ready to leave. That just takes all the fun out of the first couple of hours of getting to the airport until I try to forget about how sad he looked when I left. So do you usually have friends, or do you board your dog sometime?
I have one pretty good friend who will watch. My dog's name is Lucy, and she'll watch Lucy on some of my longer trips where I'm gone for maybe a week, or if I'm gone for longer than a week. And for like the shorter trips, I have used like rover.com, and I like for my dog to stay over somebody's house. And I feel like she gets more personal attention, and she's usually happy. I mean, like the first day I'm gone, she might not eat, so I've heard. But then once she gets used to like being at somebody else's house, she's fine. But
is Rover reliable? Because I've been wanting in so many instances to use it, but the whole concept of a stranger being with my dog scares me.
Yeah, it's so far I've had good experiences. I will always do a meet and greet with the sitter ahead of time, like before I actually book with them, just to make sure, since Lucy's going to be staying at their place, I want to make sure that they are what they've represented themselves to be, and that their house isn't like filthy, or they don't have a bunch of other animals running around, or because Lucy kind of likes to be the only dog. She can handle other dogs and other cats, but if I'm using Rover, I prefer her to be the only dog in the house, just because I don't want any incidents to happen while I'm gone. So,
yeah, that's how my dog is. She's like okay with other dogs over there, or certain dogs. But it's like if I'm not there to manage it, I get very anxious. So that's a good thought. I haven't thought about just like letting her stay someplace else where there aren't other dogs.
Mm-hmm.
How would Winston feel about that, Ben? Because Winston is also a rescue. And
he hates other dogs, so he's so scared. I think he's jealous, and so he thinks that if there's another dog near humans, that we're going to want that other dog instead. But so he gets insanely jealous. But yeah, no, he prefers hanging out with humans. I think his dog friends he just likes the owners.
That's how my dog is. She prefers, if I take her to the dog park, she will go up to the people rather than the other dogs. So she wants human attention.
And do you travel with her ever? And how does that work out?
Well, not usually. Like, she's too big for me to take like on the airplane as in the cabin. So I won't check her as cargo or anything like that. But recently, and over a few years, I guess, we've taken some road trips. So she's been to maybe like 5 or 6 states. And actually,
that's an accomplishment when you're starting in Texas, because Texas is the size of like 5 or 6 states. So that's a significant commitment just to get out of Texas.
Yeah, it is. I mean, we've taken road trips just within Texas, and we're going to do one, I think, maybe later this month. I think we're going to go down to Austin for the weekend, and I'm going to take her to that. And like just over Memorial Day, I went to Arkansas, which is about a 4.5-5 hour drive from Dallas. And so I took Lucy, and we did a lot of like outdoor recreational things. Plus, I wanted to stay like social distanced with the pandemic. And so it was easy enough that she was with me that we could go to the national park and state park and stuff like that.
And did you stay in a hotel then, or in Airbnb?
I did. I stayed at a Home 2 Suites by Hilton. So I use Hilton points a lot. They're like one of my most frequent kind of redemptions, I guess. And so I stayed. That was my first Home 2, and they're pet friendly. They charge a pet fee, but they're pet friendly though. I mean, I saw other dogs there, and so it's good.
I appreciate hotels that are pet friendly, but it's crazy sometimes how much the fee can vary, especially if you're doing like a one-night stay, if you're doing a road trip and you're going many places with your dog. Because it's one thing if the fee is like $25 or $50, but when it's $200 for a one-night stay and you're, that's more than the room rate, and your dog's not destroying the place.
It was $75 at this particular one, but yeah, I've seen some that are, $100, $125, $150. So
and it's that balance. Like, is that fee per night or per stay? Because if it's per night, sometimes I've seen it's like per night. I'm like, okay, well, that's ridiculous. Like, we were looking at Airbnbs for this summer where we could take the dog, and it's like, I'm not paying an extra $50 per night for Freya. I mean, it's like bringing a toddler, but that's a little crazy.
Day. And I stayed 2 nights, so I figure that's $35 a night. I mean, it's not terrible.
No,
but for my next trip to Austin, I see somebody in the comments just mentioned no fee at La Quinta, and that's actually what I booked for my next trip. So yeah, I'm doing a La Quinta, which I wouldn't normally do. I guess I prefer sort of more upscale places when I'm like not with my dog, but I'm going to go ahead and give them.
Right. We make compromises. So can you tell us a little bit more about, like, we'll talk about your travel style too, but how you sort of manage and leverage your points, because you've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah. How do I manage my points? I'm just always earning, I guess. I am constantly looking for ways to max out my earnings. So anything, spending multipliers like the 5X at the grocery with the Chase Sapphire Reserve right now, and I think it's like 6X on grocery with the Marriott, 12X with the Hilton card. So I just look for opportunities like that, and I spend, to max out those bonus categories. And then I churn every few months. Actually, I'm kind of taking a break right now, but I'll generally open up at least 10 new cards every year, I would say. So I'm just constantly earning, constantly burning. I'm not one of those people who have like millions and millions of miles sitting around. I use them, and then I need to keep getting more. So that's kind of my travel style.
And what's your favorite, William just says, what's your favorite redemption, or like, what's your favorite product you've flown as well? Do you redeem usually for economy so you can get the most flights, or do you redeem for first or business, or it depends on the trip?
Yeah, it depends on the trip. I do both. I'm starting to kind of get more into business and first because I'm getting more miles. And so my favorite redemption, was probably Cathay Pacific first class. That's probably the nicest one that I've done so far. I've also done Qatar business class, but it was before they had the Q suites. This was like 3 years ago. And I did that from Johannesburg to Doha, and that was also probably one of my favorites. So, yeah, but I'm hoping to do all of the luxury ones that I can. And generally, I try to fly business or first if I'm going to like Africa or Asia. And I was trying to be more frugal with my miles and fly economy to like South America or Europe. So it just depends. And also for flying to like South America or Europe, American Airlines has a hub here in Dallas. So, you know, it's easier to get like nonstop flights in economy than it would be in business. So it just depends.
Cathay Pacific is great. I love. Yeah. Did you redeem Alaska or American miles?
Alaska miles.
Okay, the best value. Good job. That is a great value. One of my favorites.
And actually, my last trip before the pandemic was in February. I went to Fiji and New Zealand. So I used Alaska miles and I flew Fiji Airways, and I got to fly the new or updated A350 business class. And so that was pretty great. Especially being like brand new.
I am jealous. That is on my list once we can. And you got most importantly to New Zealand before all of this happened, because who knows when we will be able to travel to New Zealand.
It may never be a thing again.
Yeah. I'm like, I would love to go back to New Zealand. Gorgeous country.
Yeah, that was my first time there, and it met all of my expectations. So it was great.
So that New Zealand was also a really long trip for you, because you were gone for like 2 weeks, it seemed.
Yeah, I was gone about 2 weeks because I did the stopover. You know, Alaska, you can do the free stopover. So I had a few days in Fiji first before I went on to New Zealand. And normally my trips are like long weekends, 3 or 4 days, or, you know, even to Europe, it's a long weekend. Just because of my vacation time at work, I don't get all that much time as we, you know, do as Americans. So I try to like take vacations over holiday weekends and maybe add a day or two on the back or the front end. But with this trip to New Zealand, I took over a week off, which was a lot for me, but it was worth it. I wanted to, you know, going so far, I needed to spend some time there.
Yeah, for sure. So people have lots of questions because you're sharing like great redemptions things. So how do you earn your Alaska miles? Is it just the cards? Is it flying? Is it?
It's all from the cards. Like I said, I was turning, this was sort of before they changed the rules and they made it a little harder to get the cards more frequently. But I would say every 3 to 6 months, I was getting a new Alaska card and canceling the old one. And I was also getting the personal and the business version. So I was able to rack up a lot of miles just from doing that. And I think you didn't even have to spend anything to get the bonus, or maybe had to spend like $1,000 and then they give you like $100 credit, which I put toward the annual fee. So it was easier back then. But now it's been a while since I've had a new Alaska card. I don't even remember what the rule is. It's like every, I wish I could remember.
You probably know the rules better than I do there. That's
yeah. I think they have like a 2, 3, 4 rule or something like that. Or
with Bank of America, yeah.
Yeah, Bank of America. So, but I have a spreadsheet.
I write things down so that I don't have to remember them. So I guess I can look up the blog post that Ben did about whatever the current rule is.
Keep track of all this, because, you know, we try to simplify all the rules into like little catchphrases, but then, you know, 524, 234, you know, 865. It's just, there's a lot to, at some point, is just a little confusing.
So how are you managing that now? I mean, obviously it's a little bit easier right now because nobody can go anywhere and no one's really spending any money. But how is your strategy shifting now that some of these cards have like 1 card per lifetime rules that they didn't have, you know, when back in the day when we were doing miles and points stuff? Or, you know, there's some are once per lifetime, some are, you know, 24, 48-month restrictions. Like, how has your strategy sort of evolved?
My strategy is to keep up with the restrictions, which I'm not doing very good of knowing them off the top of my head. But like, I have a spreadsheet that I usually keep track of when I last opened the card, when I closed it. So that way, when I want to go reference the rule of what their restrictions are, I know and I do that for all my cards. So it helps for Citi. I don't really churn with Chase because I guess I have quite a few Chase cards, and I don't want to keep up with trying to be 524. I'm way over that, and I probably am
Well,
going
and
to
those
stay.
cards tend to be really good for spending.
Yeah.
Anyway, right? So you can like maximize the different bonuses and stuff, given all the bonus categories. It's not like some other cards where it's like, why would I ever put $1 on this?
Yeah. And with like, lost my train of thought here. With the Bank of America and the Alaska card, as far as trying to get more Alaska miles, my strategy has just kind of been whenever they have those like shopping portal bonuses, like the Alaska shopping website, I will try to do that. So if they have like spend $100 at whatever website and get 500 miles, I'll do that like every single time they have it. Or sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's spend $500, get 1,000 miles, and they have those at least once a month. So that helps kind of trickle in a few miles. And then I guess eventually I might look at transferring like Marriott points. You can, Bonvoy, you can transfer those to Alaska. If I get low, which I have, enough for another redemption right now. So I feel like that's not so urgent for me. And by the time it becomes urgent, I may qualify for a credit card again with Bank of America. So.
Do you have any airline loyalty in particular with paid flights, or you're almost exclusively able to do award flights? And
the only time I book a paid flight is if I'm using like the Chase portal. So, but just in general, I would say like if I had to estimate 95% of my travel is award redemptions I'll transfer my Chase points to British Airways, because if I'm flying a nonstop flight on American, a lot of times due to their rules about, routing, it can be cheaper to book with British Airways than it can be to book with American. So I'll do that. And for some of my domestic flights, I'll fly Southwest in the US, so I'll transfer points from Chase to Southwest. And then I use Amex membership rewards. I'm not loyal to anything. It's just basically however I can get there, wherever there's award space. I make sure I have miles in all the various programs, or I have like transferable miles that I can use.
Yeah, which makes sense, especially if you sort of seem to know what your travel pace is, like once a month-ish, pretty consistently. So How does that impact how you plan out like your accrual? Is that easier? Because we always tell people like have a travel goal, but most people think I'm going to go to the Maldives for a month, which is a little bit different than I want to be able to go somewhere every month.
I have a list of places where I would like to go. So I just kind of look at what's available award space wise. So I don't always have my heart set on one destination. I might have 5 destinations that I'm looking at. And it's like, how can I get there with the miles that I have currently? And then if it's something kind of down the road, like I've been to South Africa once, but I would like to go back to the African continent and see additional countries. And I am trying to figure out, well, what miles do I need to get there to be able to do that again? So I'm thinking down the road, but I'm also thinking of what do I have now and what can I do with what I have now?
That's awesome. Are there places that are on your list? Like what are your top like places that you would like to go back to if we didn't have all these fun restrictions and useless passports?
Well, I'm so glad that I checked, New Zealand off my list, because that was huge for me. It was somewhere I'd been really wanting to go for a long time. And finally was able to make it work with the award space in business class and the time off from work. But where else I'm looking at, like I just mentioned, South Africa or Africa in general, I would love to go to Botswana, to Victoria Falls, to Namibia. I would love to go to Tanzania. So I've done a safari and I would like to do another one. So that's kind of my goal for that. And I would like to sort of spend more time in Asia. I've only been to Japan and Hong Kong. So I would like to go to more Asian countries. But those I feel like are big trips for me where I need like, quite a bit of time off work to do those trips. And Europe, I've been to most of like Western Europe. I'm just kind of starting to get into visiting like Eastern Europe. I went to Poland last year for Christmas, and so I'd like to see more of Eastern Europe, which I guess in the beginning when I first started traveling, Eastern Europe was kind of sort of unknown, maybe a little scary for me, the idea of it. I don't know why, I guess because not as many people travel there and I haven't heard people's experiences and whether or not they would be friendly to me or not. So that's why I started.
And you're also traveling by yourself most of the time, which is I feel like there's traveling somewhere and then there's traveling somewhere by yourself and traveling somewhere as a woman, and like it's all very different.
It is, yeah. Most of my trips, when I first started out, I would try to find people to go with me, but either, not a lot of people I know use miles and points, so if they were traveling, they were buying their flights, and I would cover the hotels with my points, and I wouldn't ask them for anything in return, but still, it's expensive for people, and I understand that. So I wanted to go, like you said, once a month. I want to go somewhere. And so I can't wait for people to come with me. That's why I basically started going alone. And
if people are paying, they don't want to go for just a weekend.
That's true too.
It's sort of my experience with my friends and family. Yeah.
Is there anywhere you've felt uncomfortable as a solo traveler of all the places you've been, or not so much?
No, not really. I guess I've had some weird people hitting on me in Spain, like in both Madrid and Barcelona. I don't know. But besides that, people are generally friendly, especially like once I start talking and they're like, oh, she's American. We want that American revenue, that tourism dollars. So I haven't had any trouble. Nothing off the top of my head. Yeah.
And then when you get places, do you do mostly still independent travel, or do you do group tours? Or sort of how do you figure it out when you're doing just these quicker trips?
It's a mix. I mostly try to stay independent just because I feel like group tours cost a little bit, and I don't necessarily want to spend all of my time with the group. I may do one-offs where it's like a day tour of something where I get on a big tour bus. Like in New Zealand, I did a tour to Milford Sound, and that was, on the big coach bus with 50 people, or, but I wouldn't want to spend my entire trip like that. I think it's okay to do as like one-offs, but yeah.
I had a very unfortunate experience on my Milford Sound tour. So
what happened?
There was this other lady on the bus, and she asked me, or I was offering to take a picture of her and her husband, because they were trying to take a picture, and I saw, and I was like, oh, do you want me to take a picture? And so, she was using an iPad to take a picture, which that's a whole different story, people taking pictures with iPads, and it had a case. And so long story short, I took the picture, but as it turned out, there was a case, but the iPad was not actually in the case. It was just like on the case. So I dropped and the iPad shattered. I was just so embarrassed. And yeah, it was not, I felt very bad. And then, I was like, I'll pay to fix it. And then they did send me the bill. And amazingly, it was only like $50 because they got it fixed in Malaysia. So I guess.
I'm surprised they followed through with like sending you the bill.
I'm very careful with things. So it was like, if you're going to have a case on your iPad, put the case on.
Yeah. That's the nice thing though now, like being able to airdrop photos to people. It's like, let me just take it with my equipment that I know works, and then I'll just Bluetooth it to you. That seems better.
Like I did a day tour when I was in Guatemala. I did a day tour to Tikal National Park, and it was a small group, like less than 10 people in the group, but there was one guy who was like taking a lot of pictures of people in the group, and at lunch he just airdropped his photos to us, and I was like, oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, it's nice, especially if there's somebody who enjoys taking all the photos of all the whatever.
I always hear stories of airdrop creeps, like people are creeps and they like especially on a plane that they'll, I don't know.
Yeah, you can turn it on and off. So I don't typically leave my airdrop on, like so that any stranger couldn't airdrop me something at any time. I only turn it on for like specific occasions that I know.
Makes sense, yes.
And yeah, I would say Somebody's saying like the people who are taking pics with an iPad don't know about AirDrop. That's probably also true.
Well, yeah, that was the other thing. I'm like, these people were not very tech savvy. So and not that I am to begin with, but they were like next level, not tech savvy. So I'm not sure, like I would have had to hold their iPad as well at that point. And yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would use an iPad. Like, don't you have a phone or, I don't know.
I mean, there are so many
but
people.
It's so much easier to see the pictures on the iPad is the thing.
Yeah,
and
well,
if you don't know how to
exactly
move them from one device to the other, then I can see the motivation.
It's so many people who do these like 12-hour tours, and all of their pictures, the full like photo tour thing, and all their pictures are on iPads. I think you're right. It's because they want to show it directly to friends on their iPad. But
like when we were in Iceland and, it was like the Northern Lights were happening at, 2 or 3 in the morning, and we're all out in the middle, the hotel will call you. And so you go out and it's winter and cold and you bundle up, and everyone is taking pictures with their iPad. And of course they're not going to turn out because you have all of the white light from the iPad and the taking of the picture. And so those people all gave up after like 5 minutes and just went back in. But it's a struggle.
Did you get good pictures? Sorry, Tiffany, did you get good pictures from the Northern Lights? Or
I got okay pictures with my phone. It was actually very, very frustrating. But my husband's a great photographer. He got some excellent pictures, and they were there with Mike, who sometimes writes on the blog. And the two of them were out there for like an hour and a half with their tripods and their timers and their, bottle of bourbon, and had a great time. So they got some amazing pictures. But yeah, it's one of those things that's complicated. I don't know if anybody's seen that with Northern Lights. Twice that I've seen them, you can't necessarily see them with your naked eye, but you can see them through the camera lens. And so it's really hard to take pictures, especially with a digital device, because it doesn't really work that way. So you can't even really see what you're doing, and you can't adjust things. You actually need more of an actual camera where you can change all the settings, or some kind of app on your phone that's specific to let you modify all the camera settings in a ridiculous way.
I haven't seen the Northern. I've been to Iceland, but it was during the summer, so there weren't Northern Lights to be seen. So I hope to. That's still kind of one of the things on my bucket list, I guess, to see the Northern Lights. And when I do, I will definitely be trying to like Google some articles on how to best photograph it.
Well, from Dallas, like I've seen them in Fairbanks now and in Iceland, and it's actually much, I think, better to go to Fairbanks or Yellowknife, especially when you're already in Dallas, because you could just watch the forecast. And so it's like even same day, which is what Carrie and I did. It was like, hey, the weather's going to be clear next week, and the solar storms happen way before the light from the solar storms gets to the US or to Iceland or wherever. So it's like, okay, in 3 weeks, it's going to be actually pretty good Northern Lights, and just watch the weather. And then it's a pretty, like when we did, it was just an obvious redemption.
I need to do this, like, I don't know how I haven't seen the Northern Lights. So I need to do that exact plan.
Yeah, and I agree with Sean, like the best way to see the Northern Lights is airborne. And yeah, on our way to Iceland, because you can't sleep on Iceland Air, it's not a thing. Like everything from the time to the seats to everything. I spent most of the flight with a blanket over my head, like looking out the window and watching.
Yeah.
So that was.
I got this when I was in Whitehorse. I got this app that's supposed to, because we were hoping to see the Northern Lights, but we didn't. But I got this app that shows you if the Northern Lights are there. And so I never uninstalled the app. So I still get push notifications in spring and fall, like almost every day. They're like, if it is clear outside, in Whitehorse, you should see it now. And I'm like, God, I wish I were in Whitehorse.
Yeah, sometimes you can see them from here, even where I am. It's just if it's dark enough, if it's dark and clear. But I'm super far north.
Yeah, and that's
the sun is currently coming up at 3:45 in the morning, and it's only June north. So, yeah. Sorry, I took us off on this whole tangent about the Northern Lights because of the iPad in New Zealand.
Yeah.
We don't really have an agenda for these, as you may have noticed, but I know that Ben wanted to ask you about your checking and savings accounts antics, because you are obviously one of the most organized people in Miles and Points, and I think that this is an interesting.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was actually doing the bank checking account bonuses before I was doing the points and miles, and it was just, I used to call it like snowflake money. So it would just be something that I would do for very little effort, and a few months later, I would get, a couple $100 extra for 5 or 10 minutes worth of work. So I would look for banks, generally like the national banks, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and you could open up checking accounts, and, deposit however much money they wanted to deposit, a few grand. Sometimes they want you to make the direct deposit or make like a certain amount of transactions on your debit card. I would do that, and then I would just, as soon as that bonus posted, is they didn't have any rules about keeping the account open, I would close the account, and then you could do that again a few months later. So I would just do that over and over. And then when I got into the miles and points, I realized that not only can you do that and keep churning checking accounts, but sometimes some banks let you open up checking accounts and fund it with a credit card. So it was like a way to meet a minimum spend on a new credit card, or it was just a way to get more miles. But unfortunately, a lot of banks have cracked down on that too. But you kind of had to be careful because some banks, it would charge you as like a cash advance, and you wanted to make sure it posted as a purchase so it didn't cost you money. But so I've been doing that for at least 10 years. And I still do it, not necessarily as much as I used to, because kind of like the credit cards, the banks have cracked down and made rules that some accounts are just one per lifetime, or some are like once a year. And then some, they want you to keep the account for 6 months or a year before you close it. So you have to read the rules basically. And so I spend a lot of time reading. I like Doctor of Credit for that, and I like Reddit. They have a ongoing thread about bank account bonuses, and people share their data points. And so like what worked for them as far as like, does the ACH transfer from another bank count as a direct deposit, or do you have to make like an actual direct deposit from your employer or something like that? So like I said, I spend a lot of time reading.
So if somebody, I feel like people are going to watch this and be like, what? This is a whole thing? Because it's not something that we ever talk about. And I don't think, Ben, either of us have ever really done, right? It's like there's too much going on in the world. So it's like I opened this one account and that's
I've opened a Sophie account, if that's how it's Soph, whatever it's pronounced. And I've opened Bank Direct and now Basque Bank, but that's all I've done. I think once I got for Chase account a whatever bonus it was, a couple $100 for opening.
Right, but it's because you actually wanted to open the account and just took their money, not because you were opening it for the money.
Do you have to go in person to do these, or you can do some of these online?
Most of them I do online. Very few I've had to do in person, because a lot of times it might be a bank that doesn't even have any branches in my area. So it's like I probably couldn't go in person if I wanted to, unless I was traveling there. But I actually have not done the Basque account. I meant to, and then the better offer that they had, they changed it. So you got like a lower number of miles, and I was waiting to see if like a better offer was going to come back. So
it's not going to.
No, it's not going
to. Their offers that are going through June 30th will probably be their best offers for a while, is my guess. Like there's some conversation of like, oh, well, we're maybe going to do this, or maybe we'll do like a refer a friend. But they've been pretty open about like the offers that they have now are. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But maybe in like a year it'll be different, right? Because they won't meet whatever targets they were going to have, because of.
Well, that's still kind of on my list to do, but sometimes I can be bad about like closing the accounts. I get the bonus and I might transfer out the bonus, and it depends on the account. If they're not charging many fees, sometimes I'm just not in a rush to close it, so I'll just leave it open for a while. Yeah. I need to be better about that, I would say.
What is? Oh, go ahead, Tiffany.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what is your thought process with when you are going to fly again or travel again longer distances? It sounds like you're doing road trips right now, but what indicators are you looking for where you're comfortable going somewhere again by plane?
Well, I'm looking at July 4th for getting on a plane to travel in the U.S. I haven't been on a plane since February. That's when I came back from New Zealand. So I just had a flight I was going to go to Copenhagen for July 4th, like a long weekend, like I do. And I canceled that because I realized just recently I come to the conclusion they're not going to be letting Americans in. They're slowly opening, but not to Americans. So I'm still trying to figure out what to do there. Do I want to get on a plane and go somewhere in the U.S.? I'm looking at places where I can go and kind of social distance and not be around too many people, where I can maybe go hiking or something like that. But as far as when do I think I can do international travel, I book travel really far in advance. I'm not really much of a last minute person. So when this whole pandemic started, I already had flights booked through like December. And so most of my travels I have not canceled. I'm kind of waiting and seeing what happens. So my next international trip that I have booked is in October, to Spain or the Canary Islands. And so if they're open to Americans and I feel like it's okay to get on a plane and it's okay to go there and stay at a hotel, I'll do it. I'm not necessarily waiting for like a vaccine or anything. I'm just kind of waiting for it to feel safe in my head and waiting till I see a lot of other travelers, getting back out there and being fine with it. So, yeah,
Fair.
I thought we were trying to go to Iceland, Ben, but it's like not working out.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was going to talk to Tiffany about this earlier, Parla. I mean, part of where I'm a little bit conflicted here is, so, Iceland is now not opening to Americans yet. The thing is, I do have a German passport, so the whole way that countries create, requirements around who can and can't come isn't necessarily rational, because you'd think it would be based around where you've been in the past 14 days rather than what passport you have. Like, for example, a Brazilian who has been, a German who has been in Brazil for the past 2 weeks or whatever could go, but a Brazilian who has been in South Korea for the past 2 weeks couldn't. Like, it's not entirely rational. So things I could go legally, because I have a German passport. I want to do the right thing.
Right, but at the same time, it's like, why?
Why? Because the truth is, I feel more comfortable that, like, when you look at, for example, most of the trips that people are taking in the U.S., I'm not going to go to Las Vegas and play blackjack.
Right.
That's not what I'm looking to do. Those are the trips people take. Obviously, there's some opportunities otherwise, but flights in the U.S. are packed as heck. Like, they're full. Even booking a couple weeks out, like, most of them are sold out already. A lot of places that people want to go, everybody has the same ideas. So, like, there are fairly limited options if you're looking to do something decent in the near future. And if you're responsible about it, that's where I struggle, is because, like, I would get tested before I get on the plane. So there would be no real risk there. They test you on arrival. So is it not responsible versus, like, I feel more responsible and safer. I feel like I'm being more responsible and being safer than if I went somewhere in the US, because just seeing people out and about in the US, the way they're acting,
Yeah, I went to the hardware store yesterday, and it was the first time I have gone into a retailer in like 3 months, because just timing in life, and my husband is the extreme extrovert. So he actually really needs to have that interaction with the cashier in order to stay married. So he's been doing all the errands and has been having a lot of fun with it, other than the credit card conversations about the errands. But so I went to the hardware store and I came back. I was only there for like 10 minutes, and Nick was like, "How was it?" And I was like, "We're all going to die." Like, actually, that's what's going to happen, because, like, half of the employees were wearing masks that covered both their nose and mouth, and with everyday people, it was just a mess. But that's also Spokane, where Spokane's not really on board with.
Well, Texas isn't really on board either with the masks. And I go out to, I haven't really been to a retail store outside of like the grocery store, like Kroger or Walmart. It's kind of the places I've been going. But people there, it's like a statement they're trying to make by not wearing a mask.
Yeah.
And that kind of scares me. I do wear a mask when I go out to the stores, and I wear it over my nose and my mouth, so I'm good.
Yeah, we went and picked my brother-in-law up from the airport last night. He just got back from Kuwait, and so we were picking him up. And like, we were wearing masks because I feel like it's important to normalize wearing a mask, and we were like the only ones. I mean, there were only like 7 people in the airport, so it was fine. But I was like, you guys have just all been on a plane. So, yeah.
And I'm curious, for anyone in the U.S., where are you thinking of going, or where would you go, or where are you seeing good opportunities? Like, for example, somebody said Miraval. Miraval is an interesting option, except Arizona in July is not necessarily the most tempting. The one in the Berkshires is not opening till at least some point in July, and I'm skeptical if it's going to open then. And there's one in Austin that's an option, but like I think there are fairly few.
I have been looking at going up to Boston and then renting a car and driving to like Rhode Island, because I feel like Newport, Rhode Island. I've never been to Rhode Island, so one of my goals is to visit all 50 states. So any chance I can get to go to a new state, I want to try to do that. And I feel like Rhode Island is a small state. They are opening, but they're opening slower than the South is for sure. And I feel like if I have my own car, I can drive and just kind of do outdoor things, go to the beach, or I think there's like a scenic cliff walk and a scenic drive I could do. So that's kind of my tentative plan right now. I was also looking at Vegas because I was supposed to go to Vegas in April, and it was on Southwest, and it was such a low number of points, like 4,000 points round trip when I originally booked it and kept changing it. And so I feel like I don't want to cancel it and lose a trip that's only 4,000 round trip points. So I just keep moving it every single month. They let you change the dates for free. So every month I change the dates. So right now I changed it to July, but I think, like you said about Arizona, it's hot. I don't know that I really want to go to Las Vegas when it's 110 degrees in July, and I don't gamble. I mean, I may spend $20 in a casino or something, but that's not really what I do for recreation. So yeah, that's why I was kind of leaning toward the East Coast.
It's funny you mentioned Newport, because I was having, like, my husband is from Newport, like grew up there. So we were literally talking 2 days ago. We're like, oh, we should do an actual road trip, go up to the Northeast and go to Newport because he wants to go back. Partly because, the Real Housewives of New York were just there. So it brought back good memories from when he saw them. There's like, oh, I really want to go back. Anyway.
Well, and also, like, Gil made a good point when he was talking about, like, in New York, they're being super aggressive about it. So there is maybe some element of, like, yes, there's not as many wide open spaces, but going to some of these places where they've been taking it seriously, and you're going to be surrounded by other people who are taking it seriously. So like New York and Boston and the Northeast and, parts of California, like that might be.
Well, but this gets to part of my problem here is that, so I'm like, okay, this sounds like a great idea. I'm like, let's see how soon we could go. So I looked at like 3 different hotels in Newport. I'm like, oh, I guess they're only opening July 1st because that's the first day they show any availability. No, as it turns out, every one of those hotels is completely sold out for the next 3 weeks. Like, there are not many options in, like, a lot of people are traveling domestically and have the same ideas, and I feel safe, but it's more just like, there are fairly limited options in some.
Yeah. Doesn't Leamy have like a friend with a guest house or something that you guys can go and stay at there?
I don't know. We thought a road trip would be fun, but everything's sold out. So I don't know where to go that is not like 110 degrees. That I mean, there's some options. It's just, or there's Iceland, but
because I was also looking, if I don't feel comfortable flying anywhere, I would try to go somewhere driving distance. So there's lots of places in Texas to go. I mean, I've been to like San Antonio before, but it's been 20 years. So I could go to San Antonio. I could go to the Hill Country. That's 4 to 5 hour drive. Or I was also looking at maybe if I felt like doing a longer drive, going to like the Gulf beaches and Galveston. That's probably about 5 hours too, I guess. Or even further away, going all the way like Alabama to the Gulf beaches. So I just want to go somewhere, but I haven't totally figured out where. So.
Yeah,
I hear you.
I think we're all sort of in that space. I've been spending a lot of time looking at Airbnbs, because what I would like to do this summer is just go and rent a place on a lake. Like, we don't have a lake place. Everyone else in Spokane has a lake place. We're like the only family that doesn't have a lake place. It's fine. I've never previously had lake place envy. So it'd be like, all right, you enjoy your cabin, I'll be in Greece.
Yeah.
But this year we're actually here. And it's like looking at things, and you're going through and you're thinking like, and I'm sure you can relate to this because you also love your house, right? And it's like, okay, I want some place where it looks like the bed is going to be comfortable and where there's a nice shower and there's a yard for the dog. And now it's like, maybe I'll just stay here and unplug the Wi-Fi and we'll just count that as vacation.
That's fair.
I don't know. I have not been to any of these places on the Gulf Coast that people are asking about. Like, is it really that hot? Like, are we really talking about like 85-degree water in Galveston?
I mean, I've never been to Galveston, so I'm not sure, but I don't know.
I don't know. It doesn't seem recommended.
I guess Galveston is yucky. Well,
yeah. I'm like, these are some strong opinions.
Caribbean, I don't have those expectations that it's going to be the Caribbean or anything, or even Florida, but it's just kind of to go somewhere that I haven't been before.
Would you guys consider the Caribbean, since you're both in places where you can fly directly to the Caribbean?
I would. I was kind of looking. I mean, I heard that Mexico may be letting people in. I'm not totally sure about the rules about that, but it's sort of on the table.
I'm very open to it, but there's very few. Their openings are a bit odd. You can go to St. Lucia, but you can't leave your hotel. And the whole thing sounds a bit like a nice jail. So
yeah, and I've heard Antigua's open, I believe. Maybe
the
like
restrictions
Jamaica
are significant, and I feel like it's like they're not actually doing testing, but they're still, I'd rather go somewhere that has it under control, where they're testing, and then where you can just live your life after you've. But that's maybe not.
Well, and I think it just depends, because if it was like when you went to St. Kitts, like you spent most of your time at the Park Hyatt and it looked like that was lovely. So and maybe it just depends on like the quality of the resort and how things are being handled. Because if it was something like that, like I would go and stay for 5 days in the same place.
For sure. I think part of my concern is, and this sounds maybe bad, but the closer you are to the, if you're in the US, it's just, I see people out here, how horrible they are with how they wear masks or don't wear masks, how just generally irresponsible they are. And I tend to think the more accessible it is to most Americans, the more likely it is that you're with other people. Like I get pissed off if I'm somewhere and just people are being jerks and
you should come out here and we should go to rural Montana or Idaho. I think that's the thing to do.
That will happen. So we're going either way to Wyoming. So that's a little later in summer, because I think the weather is not actually in Wyoming. It's still apparently July and August are the good months, or September.
Well, yeah, there's winter and then there's July and August.
Yes. So that's.
But June is also nice, like right now, because everything is green. Right now is probably the prettiest time of year in the mountains, but you do need a sweater at night. And it snowed last weekend at my aunt and uncle's in Idaho. Like actual, 2 inches of snow on the ground in the call.
Yeah, we're pushing 100 degrees here in the Dallas area. I don't think we've hit it quite yet, but we've gotten pretty close so far this month of June. So I know it's coming, and I'd like to escape from it.
Yeah, I mean, I think many of us are getting to the point where we need some sort of a travel reset. Like I actually, it's like, obviously there are more important things, and this pandemic is serious and everything, but I think after we've been inside for 3 months, it's like I need to go somewhere just so that I feel like I've been somewhere and can stop thinking about going somewhere in a way.
Right. Like it's not even about the going somewhere as much as I need a vacation from everything.
Yeah.
And if going somewhere helps to facilitate that mental break, then I'm all in.
That is the
challenge. Lee's pointing out that she was in Yellowstone in early June a couple years ago when it was 28 with snow flurries. That can happen.
That's very cool for me.
Yeah. Well, summer goes late here. It goes into September, but people forget that. It's like all of the people who go to San Francisco in the summer and think that it's California and they should wear shorts. And then anyone who's ever been to San Francisco in the summer who's not from California has had to purchase a hoodie because they've been frozen. I'm pretty sure.
I went to San Francisco, but it was in sort of September, October, where people told me that it's warmer then than it is during the summer. So I was like, yes, you say so.
June is
it is, because it gets fogged in there. And we have, what's very affectionately referred to in a not at all racist way as Indian summers. in this part of the country. And
Yeah.
it's a lot to unpack, but it does mean that summer is in August and September and October rather than May, June, July.
I mean, there's a lot of places where June is deceiving. People assume it's nice because it's the longest day is whatever, June something, but 21 or 22, but it's actually just rainy and miserable a lot of places. So,
yeah. Are you guys thinking about any national parks? Or is anybody? Because I'm hearing we talked about Yellowstone a little bit in the snow, but.
Well, my trip for Memorial Day weekend that I just went to Arkansas, I did Hot Springs National Park. I guess I haven't been very big on the national parks in my travels, I guess because they're generally maybe out of the way. You have to drive there, and I try not to drive. I know we're talking about road trips, but I actually don't like driving. So this is kind of I'm really just doing it because I'm not flying, I'm driving. But I would really like to go to more national parks. I was supposed to go to St. Louis, which the Gateway Arch is now a national park, but I had to cancel that trip. It was supposed to be in May, I guess, so I canceled that. And I'm also looking at White Sands, which was recently made a national park in New Mexico. But I would have to probably fly there. I mean, I could drive, but it'd be pretty far. I would probably just fly to El Paso and then drive to New Mexico from there. So those are kind of the ones that are on my near future radar, I guess.
You guys would love the Southern Utah National Parks.
I was supposed to do that in April, actually. And so like I said, before this pandemic, I had trips planned for every single month. So April was going to be Las Vegas and Utah. So now that's why I was saying I moved Las Vegas to July, but I don't know that I want to go in July. I might just keep moving it as long as they let me.
Yeah, because there's other places with maybe better weather.
To look into national parks. I think I would love to see some of them because they've for so long been overlooked. My concern is this going to be the worst time ever to visit them in terms of I feel like everybody is going to go to the national park. So I know there's a lot of space in them. They're not, clubs.
Well, there's a lot of space and it's going to be organized. The thing is about national parks, and this is based off of my experiences getting dragged to almost all of them as a teenager. So things may have changed. But they're massive in most cases, or they're small and contained, like the Arch in St. Louis, right? It's a few city blocks. But they can be pretty well managed. I don't know that they're necessarily going to be busier this year than in past years. I think it's okay to say, I think the whole national parks are going to be busy. It's just a little classist. That's where most of America goes in the summer anyway on their vacations. It's just a small.
Al K went to one of the state parks in Illinois and I'm not going back. Very few people wore masks and some of paths are very narrow, almost fell into a ditch by choice instead of passing crowds of people.
Right. I mean, that's state parks are different sizes and things like that. Yellowstone is massive. And so there's a lot of areas that you could go and you could be what are the less, just like going anywhere else, right? Iceland can be crowded in summer or it can be completely desolate. It depends where you go. And a lot of that is the difference. But I think probably a lot of people would normally be going. It's more just a different demographic that's going this year, which may make things worse or better.
Yeah.
That's sort of.
Fair. We'll see how.
Yeah. Well, I'll say for my hot springs visit in Arkansas, there were people there certainly, but I feel like I wasn't passing crowds or hordes of people. I went to a state park in Hot Springs, and then I went to the Hot Springs National Park. And the only place that there was kind of a lot of people was downtown Hot Springs, which is actually part of the national park. And just that main street there. And I wore my mask when I was out walking down the street looking around, but I really didn't go into any stores. There's some historic bathhouses there, and they were all still closed anyway, so I didn't go inside anywhere. So I felt like I was able to stay distanced from people.
Good to know. I'm sure I will figure out which ones to go to. We will see, but I think that's definitely on the radar at some point. Well, almost.
Well, you should go to Glacier before it is gone. Like, that's why I want to go to this year, because Glacier is one of the few national parks on like this side of the Mississippi that I haven't been to, which I think is it used to have glaciers, and apparently now it doesn't as much.
Yeah.
They're smaller than they were even 5 years ago. So I feel like that's higher on my list now. And it's massive.
Sounds cooler than some of the other ones. So that's, yes. Well, Senitra, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And it's been very interesting. Now I need to look into checking account bonuses, I guess, more, because I feel like I've been missing out on those. So
yeah, thank you for
very much.
inviting me.
Thanks to everyone else who tuned in, and we will see you on Sunday. Thank you very much.